Okay, welcome back to B-Roll, your one-stop shop for top-notch knowledge. We are joined again by the wonderful Jim, who is going to be talking to us this time about Alfred Hitchcock and Vertigo. Jim, it's hard to believe that weeks have gone by since we last sat in these very chairs wearing these very clothes.
I know, black's my look.
So, last time we spoke about Casablanca, a film from the start of the Hollywood era. Let's talk now about Vertigo, 1958, Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
End of the era. What's changed?
So it's always quite interesting whenever you look at dividing any era of art into different segments, because you don't suddenly go from classic Hollywood to new Hollywood and it's this huge diametric change. These changes happen gradually and over time. And we can definitely see that in Vertigo, that in many ways it's still kind of under control of the studio system, but there's lots and lots of changes, and it's almost a sea change apart from Casablanca, in my opinion, in terms of what it addresses, how it's made, how it looks.
In 30 seconds or so, what's the rough story of Vertigo? What happens?
30 seconds?
In 30 seconds.
Wow, okay. A detective is hired to follow a woman around. He falls in love with her, and much hilarity ensues.
Right. That's not what happens at all, is it? The first bit's right.
The first bit's correct, yeah. And the hilarity, no.
The hilarity does not ensue.
No, there is no ensuing hilarity.
There is unfortunately.
He falls in love with a woman, and we are drawn into a web of obsession
and deceit.
Yes,
absolutely. Yep. Okay, it stars Jimmy Stewart and
Kim Novak.
I nearly said Tippi Hedren, but she was in The Birds.
She was in The Birds, and Marnie.
I've not seen Marnie.
Marnie's an interesting one because it's Sean Connery as your lead actor.
Interesting. I've not seen much Connery outside of Bond and Zardoz. And Untouchables, of course.
Yeah, Highlander.
Yeah.
Marnie's an interesting one. I mean, it's almost kind of like the elephant in the room when talking about Hitchcock.
Right.
To kind of there's always this huge lingering thing about his behaviour as a human being, especially his behaviour towards women and the treatment of them in his films, and whether that kind of reflects upon his kind of behaviour and treatment of them in real life.
Right.
Now Marnie's quite unpleasant because it involves a woman who's a thief, and she gets caught by someone who essentially forces her to marry him, and they have a non-consensual relationship on their wedding night. So it's pretty
rapey. Is that the word we're looking for?
I hate the phrase rapey because it almost makes
it makes light of it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
no, which is not what I'm intending to do at all.
Marnie's pretty unpleasant, and it's remarkable that Hedden even. Is it Hedden or Hedren?
Tippi Hedren.
It's remarkable that Hedren even agreed to work with him again after The Birds, because
he was quite vicious to her on it, wasn't he?
I mean, I kind of almost respect the blatant disregard for the rights and health and safety of the actors. There's a scene in The Birds when the birds come out from under the chimney and they attack her. Hitchcock is behind the camera, literally throwing birds at her head, which she couldn't get away with nowadays.
No, God, no, not at all.
And also just afterwards, so obviously Tippi Hedren's daughter is renowned actress Melanie Griffiths.
Yep.
And for one of her birthdays, Uncle Hitch bought her a Barbie doll of her mother in wearing the clothes she's wearing in The Birds in a casket, which is Hitch. I think there's the debate of separating the art from the artist is a long-standing one.
And of course there are caskets in Vertigo, and there's death of a woman, or is there? There's a lot of this sort of forced relationship. There's a lot of these sort of auteur themes almost that run through his films. What else is in Vertigo that's kind of sort of symbolic of Hitchcock as an auteur?
I think possibly the best example, because in The Exam, you don't just want to comment about, here are 3 or 4 of Hitchcock's auteur traits, because
it's boring. It's B grade.
It's boring, and okay, you're addressing the fact that he's an auteur, but you're not really stringing anything together. You're not giving any of your own views and ideas. And also, you could argue Hitchcock being in cameos is an auteur trait, good luck saying something of real note.
I know, like M. Night Shyamalan does cameos.
Yeah.
So what?
No, I think the auteur trait best embodied in Vertigo is that of the Hitchcock blonde. Because, recurring trait throughout a lot of Hitchcock's films, which, is easy to identify. You've got, actors such as Tippi Hedren, Kim Novak, the
Janet Leigh,
the amazing Grace Kelly. But also, the thing with Vertigo, which takes it to another level, is Hitchcock carefully constructed these blonde characters in his films. Again, Kim Novak was famously told when she approached about what clothes she would wear, he'd go, "Here you go. You can wear whatever colour you want as long as it's grey," and he made her wear the grey suit. And it's almost meta when you've got the scene with James Stewart, an obsessive man obsessing over a woman and forcing her to look a certain way.
Yeah, he does, and he doesn't change his style, does he? He still wears those kind of browns and sort of
reddy browns.
Yeah, red sort of his colour, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's his female friend?
Midge,
who wears a lot of yellows.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of colour kind of going on in this film.
Colour symbolism of colour is again something that's embedded throughout the film. And also you have this wonderful, wonderful sequence where precipitates Scotty's breakdown, when you have all the Technicolor animations going on, and just that use of really rich colour. I don't think you'd have seen anything like that at that time. For that time, I mean, Wizard of Oz maybe with its astounding use of colour. I can't imagine what it would have been like to have gone to seen that in the cinema.
No,
where you're presented with something in black and white, and then you get that lurid Technicolor.
And it's very, very bold Technicolor. It's very saturated, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
As a way of making colour on film.
Yeah, and the other kind of things I could think of which would be like that would be Walt Disney cartoons. So,
like Fantasia, for example. Yeah.
So you have that amazing use of colour, and it's really, really strong. Which, that's a far cry from our black and white, film noirs that we've watched.
Yep.
So Hitchcock, he truly does embrace the use of Technicolor in that film. And other technical things he also embraces are his use of cinematography is, amazing as well. The obvious shot is the dolly zoom. Yeah,
or the vertigo zoom, as it's sometimes called.
Yeah. But also other things like the use of soft focus in the graveyard, which would have been an in-camera effect then. Nowadays it would be done in post. And other things such as the just some of the shots, like when Scotty is following Madeline, as we know her at that point, around the beginning of the film, and you have this huge unbroken takes, mainly from Scotty's POV. But what that does, it puts us in this voyeuristic position as well, and incriminates us as much as
because we're forced to empathise with someone that's being a bit creepy.
And the thing I like, it's almost like when we spoke all those weeks ago about Casablanca, where we have Rick with his tough exterior who slowly softens. Scott is the other way almost. He has a catastrophic accident at the beginning, so we really sympathise for him and feel sorry that he's kind of been emasculated. But then by the end of the film, when he's got his mojo back, it's at the expense of someone's life, and I don't want to be friends with him anymore at that point. He's awful. The way he actually breaks her down. It gets me every time, and I think it's the mark of a good film if you have a repeated emotional connection with a particular scene, even though I've seen Vertigo 20 or 30 times now. The bit when she agrees to do her hair the way he wants it.
Oh God, that's so horrible.
And she says, scene. I'll do it as long as you love me. And it's like she's willing to essentially sacrifice her identity to appease this guy.
Yeah, and the worst part for me of that whole scene is he never really justifies why he wants her to do any of these things. It's just he wants her to do them.
Yeah. And
she goes along with them.
Yeah.
It does feel a bit meta for Hitchcock, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, the two scenes which I think sum that up perfectly, if you want something to focus on when you're cramming your revision, I would say either the montage sequence when she's getting her hair dyed, which also shows the kind of the progression of Hitchcock being willing to use things other than continuity editing, but also the hotel scene where she walks out of the bathroom is it's just got everything you could possibly want to talk about Hitchcock in that scene is there.
Yeah.
You've got the Hitchcock blonde. You've got the final moment when she has become Madeline, and where if she doesn't become Madeline, Scotty will have lost her forever. You have that great shot of Scotty's face. We see his reaction.
Doing
to
typical
how she
Jimmy
looks.
Stewart.
Yeah, you've got this typical Jimmy Stewart response, but we don't know what he's responding to yet until we see her walk out. And then that use of filters again makes her appear ghostly, so that ties in with the idea of the uncanny.
Very much so. There's a lot of uncanny in that film, isn't there?
Something that that appears familiar but also not quite right.
Yeah, the uncanny.
The use of green as well, tying symbolism of the colour green with uncanny and the supernatural.
Ghoulish sort of connotations.
Yeah, and it also being Madeline's colour. And then you have that wonderful bit when they finally, kiss, and it's like, yay, Madeline's back. Scotty's got the woman of his dreams back, and the camera pans round, it goes black, and then they're in the stables again, and you've got the kind of lovers motif that Bernard Herrmann uses. And at one point, Scott, she's too busy, making mouth-to-mouth contact with him, but he looks around like, well, hang on, what's going on here? Because it takes him back to the stables beforehand.
Yeah.
Fantastic scene.
So, we've talked a lot about Hitchcock and his kind of auteur signature moves, the way he was with women, the way he was as a director. This is very, very much in contrast to what we were talking about last time in Casablanca, where the studio was really still involved. We're still in the classical Hollywood era. So how much is the production code, the Hays Code, how much is the studio influence still present by this time?
There is still a degree of the studio wanting to assume control over the film. I mean, the thing is with Hitchcock, him being so successful with his prior films, like with any artist who makes a large amount of money, they're given a degree of artistic freedom. They can get away with it. It's no coincidence that by the time you get to the fourth Harry Potter book, it's like doubled in size, because what editor is going to go, no, I think you should cut loads of this. And with Hitchcock, you can see there's that battle. Most noticeably, you have the scene when he first visits Judy, and she says Judy. And do you know what? I'm just going to put this on record. I don't think Kim Novak gets enough props for trying to have to play two different women
in the same film. Yeah,
and I think she's a very good job of it, even though she wasn't Hitch's first choice for the role.
Who was his first choice?
I can't remember her name. She plays the older sister in Psycho. I think her name's Vera.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And the problem was, she had the temerity, the sheer nerve to become pregnant.
How dare she?
So
that was it for Hitchcock, wasn't it? Yeah, can't control that. So
So the scene when he goes up to her apartment, and it's a bit weird. He's a bit pathetic at this point of oh, can I just come and see her? And she's like, oh, okay, go on then. And then when he goes, and she writes the letter, which explains everything. So actually, no, I'm wrong with that, aren't I? There's a flashback first, where once he's gone, we see the flashback of what actually happened on the bell tower.
Yes.
So we see her hanging out with Gavin Elster.
Yeah.
We see him holding
all of the deception comes to the fore.
The corpse of the real Mrs. Elster.
Yes, who's been bumped off camera at some point. Yeah.
And then she writes the letter to Scotty, which essentially just retells us what we've just seen, but confirms it for those of you who weren't quite sure what was going on.
Yes.
And that, I think that was the studio's insistence to include that, which does seem quite clumsy.
A bit like the voiceovers in Blade Runner almost.
Oh God, don't get me started on those. They are truly dire.
It's not on the syllabus anymore.
No, anymore.
You're lucky.
And then she tears the letter up and flushes it away anyway. So, what purpose, in a narrative sense, what purpose does this letter actually serve?
Yeah, Scotty never receives it, so it's purely for the audience. It's like convenient news story is convenient, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose the only thing you could say is it shows a degree of reticence on her part, but not enough for her to
actually send it.
Yeah,
though.
so it's kind of like a half-assed gesture, really.
Yeah.
Then the other scene famous for Hitchcock arguing with the studio, and in this instance he actually won through, was, if you haven't seen the deleted the alternative ending, watch it. It's truly, truly quite poor. And a good example as to why you should sometimes let directors just direct.
This was the studio's preferred ending, was it?
Yeah, because obviously we've seen with the Hays Code, you cannot promote promiscuity, you cannot promote evildoers getting away with evil. I mean, one of the other things the Hays Code talks about is prohibiting showing any interracial relationships, which is
really?
one of the ickier and less, palatable things to show in film. So at the end of Vertigo, obviously you have this unresolved ending. Okay, Scotty has a resolution. He's no longer got vertigo, ergo he's now a man again. Judy has the worst resolution of the lot in that she is a pancake on the floor.
She's dead, yeah.
And Elster's got away with murder.
Yeah, Gavin Elster's just got away with it all.
He's got away with murder. He's disappeared. His ex-college mate, he's had a mental breakdown as a result of it. And, Judy's dead. Cheers, Gavin. So the alternative ending, the one the studio wanted, gave some degree of resolution, and it's so ham-fisted.
Is it?
I don't know if anyone watching this will have start doing their coursework yet, but if you are uncertain as to how to progress a narrative, narrative exposition is the easiest thing to do to get a concept across that you can't show otherwise. Yeah, having them listen to the radio where we're told, the police have found Gavin Elster in Switzerland.
Convenient news story is convenient.
And they'll soon, zoom in on him. So hurrah, the film has ended, goodness has been restored, and also Scott is there with Midge, who, let's face it, she was really the right person for him.
Yes.
So there we go, we have a nice resolution at the end.
But it's a terrible ending.
It's dire, it's really awful. It's not as bad as the theatrical ending to Blade Runner.
Yeah, no, that was awful.
But it's still a bit of a cop-out, and fair play to Hitch for putting his foot down and going, actually, no, this is how this should be.
Yep. So we've talked about auteur, we've talked a fair bit about production now as well. Finally, kind of aesthetics. What are the aesthetics of this film?
Ooh, so again, we spoke about symbolism a lot. Lots of use of colour and representation of character through colour. There's the whole thing of the way in which Madeline is originally associated with the colour green, and the great thing with any kind of talking about connotations of colour is that there's nothing set, it's social dependent, so the meanings can vary depending, red is associated with anger and with love, but it doesn't have to be both at the same time. Scotty's obviously got his reds, she's got her greens. You see the scene in Ernie's beginning when everything is red apart from her.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful, beautiful shot.
It's a really good scene to study for that.
Yeah,
aesthetics.
One of the things that really becomes noticeable about Hitchcock when you compare it with your journeyman directors, that's not too much of a backhanded compliment, is that it's beyond just being functional. You haven't got the traditional tableau style of 1920s cinema where you've got the wide shot and then you cut to the close-up for
establishing shot, master shot, close-up. It's very formulaic.
Hitchcock breaks away from that and does give us some lovely, lovely shots. You've got again symbolism of gender. You have the phallocentric tower looming over Scotty
repeatedly,
wherever he goes.
Yeah.
And then you've got the symbolism of the flowers representing female sexuality. So there's a great deal of symbolism going on there. And also with the production of the aesthetics is that it wasn't just filmed on the studio lot. He was able to go out and film in particular
which was still
locations.
Fairly rare, wasn't it, at that time?
If you look really closely at the what's the place called with the church? Is it a rescue?
I can't remember.
The mission, the Spanish mission.
Yeah.
If you look at it really carefully, the tower which they're thrown from isn't actually there in real life. That's a matte painting.
They've matted it in, have they?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. For symbolic. That's a really good example.
Yeah.
Again, of auteur control, because if you are physically altering the shot to make it look like something else, there is a reason behind that. So if anyone's saying, but is it just an accident? Did Hitchcock really mean all this phallic symbolism?
Hitchcock,
of course he did.
Every single thing.
Everything.
He's well known for from the interviews he did with Francois Truffaut, which, if you like Hitchcock, it's definitely worth looking at least the section about Vertigo, if not other sections as well. His almost meticulous obsession with storyboarding, to the point that once he'd finished doing that, he actually really wasn't that interested in the filming process.
Yeah, that was the boring bit.
Yeah, he'd done all the fun stuff.
Yeah, all the fun creative stuff had happened. Yeah, absolutely.
So I didn't know this. A bit of a Hitchcock fact for you. Apparently, Hitchcock didn't direct the shower scene in Psycho.
Oh no!
He was ill that day, and Saul Bass ended up doing it.
Really?
Apparently so.
That's one of the scenes that's most commonly associated with Hitchcock.
I mean, I did have that from Richard McRae, so take that as you will.
Take that with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, but Hitchcock really upped the level of creative control with cameras and doing interesting and unique shots. And they're not just present in Vertigo. You've got the wonderful scene in Strange on the Train where you have someone who's just been released from prison suggesting a murder to someone, and whilst he's doing that, you have the light from the blinds forming bars across his face as if he's still in prison. Which,
of course, there's a lot of in Casablanca as well, as we were talking about last time.
And one of the other things in Strange on the Train is you've got a scene where a woman is strangled, and the way Hitchcock did it, he could have just filmed it in a normal manner, but instead he has the woman have her glasses, which are a very key part of her mise-en-scène, get knocked off, and you see, essentially, the reflection in the glasses of her being strangled, which was a really tricky shot.
That's very clever, yeah.
But, he did it because he was, despite, being pre-New Hollywood, he still had that influence of German expressionism upon his filmmaking.
And he started his career in silent film in the UK, in fact, down in Shoreditch.
That's correct.
Yep. There's a huge iron head of him down there by Shoreditch Park. And unfortunately, the Hitchcock pub is no longer.
Oh, North by Northwest is gone.
It's gone. All right, thank you very much for that fascinating conversation about Vertigo. Join us next time on B-Roll, where we'll be talking about Bonnie and Clyde, a film just a few years after Vertigo that is very visually similar, but very different in tone. Thank you very much. See you then.
See you later.